The film begins in 1996, where Alex's father is walking along the beach and finds a Jumanji game. He takes it home and gives it to his son, Alex. When Alex sees it, he shows no interest because it looks old, so he sets it aside. However, during the night, Alex wakes up to find a tape inside the game. He takes it and plays it on the gaming device. At that moment, a bright light bursts from his room, but we don't know what happened. 20 years later, Spencer is seen writing a school essay for his classmate. He calls him, and they agree to meet in front of a creepy house. We find out that Spencer has been doing Fred's homework because he feels lonely and wants to be friends with him. When they meet in front of the house, which is later revealed to be Alex's house, which had mysteriously disappeared 20 years ago, Spencer hands Fred the essay, trying to start a conversation and build a friendship between them. However, Fred doesn't seem interested and just thanks Spencer before leaving. At school, we meet Bethany, a spoiled girl known for her popularity and always focused on social media and fashion. During class, she is distracted by her phone, prompting her teacher to punish her with detention. Martha, on the other hand, is a diligent student who cares only about studying and refuses to waste time on any other activities. When she sharply responds to the physical education teacher for not wanting to participate in the activity, she is also punished with detention. At the same time, the school principal calls Spencer and Fred to his office and decides to punish them with detention after discovering that Spencer had been doing Fred's school assignments. So, the four of them gather in the school's basement to serve their detention together. During this time, Spencer develops a liking for Martha, but he lacks the courage to talk to her or even start a simple conversation. While in the basement, they find a Jumanji game console and decide to play it out of curiosity and for fun. Each of them chooses a character in the game, but suddenly, a strong beam of light emanates from it, pulling them inside, and they find themselves in the middle of a jungle in the game world. Here, each of them discovers that they have become the characters they chose. Spencer is surprised to find his body has become strong, realizing he has transformed into Smolder, the brave and muscular man. Fred finds himself in a small body with a short stature, having become Mouse, an expert in the animal world. At that moment, Bethany falls from the sky, having transformed into Professor Sheldon, a geography and map expert. As for Martha, she becomes Ruby, the deadly dancer. They all begin to adjust to their new appearances, still in shock, unaware of how they ended up in the game or how to escape from it. They notice a tattoo with 3 lines on their arms, and suddenly, a hippopotamus appears behind Bethany and swallows her, killing her before their eyes, which terrifies them. But after a few moments, Bethany falls again from the sky, and the scene repeats with the hippopotamus chasing them through the jungle, causing them to flee in panic. At that moment, a man in a car appears and offers to take them with him. It becomes clear that this man is named Nigel, a programmed character within the game, whose mission is to guide them in what they should do. He tells them that he has been waiting for them and that they must save the world of Jumanji from the curse that has afflicted it. He then hands Spencer a message containing information about this curse. They are told that there is an evil man named Russell who was seeking the tiger statue to obtain the sacred gem inside it. He succeeded in stealing the gem and taking control of the Jumanji world, spreading evil forces throughout it. To stop him, someone had to steal the gem from him while he was sleeping, and now it is in their possession. Nigel informs them that their task is to return the gem to its rightful place inside the statue, which will remove the curse and allow them to win the game. He also gives them a map that will guide them to the missing piece they need to complete their team. Nigel leaves, and when they open the map, they find no markings on it. They realize that Bethany is the only one capable of reading it, as her character has the skill to read maps. Spencer places his hand on his heart, and a screen appears showing each of their strengths and weaknesses. Spencer discovers that he has skills in courage, climbing, and speed with no weaknesses. Martha possesses the ability to perform the deadly dance, but her weakness is poison. As for Fred, he has extensive knowledge of animals, but his weaknesses include slowness, low strength, and a tendency to eat cake. They are all surprised by their weaknesses, especially Fred, who feels frustrated. Suddenly, a projectile flies past them, and Russell's gang appears, riding motorcycles and firing at them. The friends flee into the jungle, utilizing their skills. Spencer, with his extraordinary speed, runs swiftly, unlike Fred, who struggles with slowness and weak strength. Martha uses her jumping ability to avoid the bullets and successfully saves Bethany at the last moment. Meanwhile, Spencer carries Fred on his back due to his slowness, and they reach the edge of a waterfall, where everyone is forced to jump into the water. After they emerge from the river, they discover that Martha has been shot during the chase, causing her character to disappear and die within the game. However, moments later, she falls from the sky again, and they notice that the number of lines on her wrist has decreased to only 2. At that moment, they realize that these lines represent the number of remaining lives they have in the game, and losing all of them means their permanent death, with no way to return to their real world. As they walk, tension arises between them, as Martha observes that Bethany is still acting like the popular girl at school, unaware of the reality of their situation. Bethany only cares about herself. In response, Bethany tells her that she judges others too quickly, which is why no one will ever like her. A conflict breaks out between Spencer and Fred, where Fred blames Spencer for their detention, while Spencer feels he was doing Fred a favor by writing his school essay and that Fred should thank him instead of reproaching him. Fred loses his temper and accidentally pushes Spencer, causing him to fall off the cliff. But moments later, Spencer falls again from the sky after losing one of his lives. Spencer gets angry and strikes Fred, using his strength, but quickly realizes the situation and saves Fred before he slips off the edge and loses one of his lives as well. At that point, they realize the importance of cooperation, and they decide to stop fighting and work together to succeed in the game. They follow the map, which leads them to a market where they feel an intense hunger. Fred eats a piece of cake displayed there, but he remembers too late that cake is his weakness, and suddenly it explodes. He falls from the sky again after losing another life due to his lack of focus. A small child appears in front of them and asks them to follow him. They do so until they reach a tent containing a basket. Spencer lifts the basket's lid, and a snake emerges, attacking Martha and attempting to bite her. Spencer grabs it with his hands, then hands it to Fred, who removes its poisonous fangs. After searching the basket, they find a small elephant-shaped piece, along with a note that says they must climb the elephant upon seeing it, though they don't understand what it means. They exit the tent to find themselves being pursued by Russell's gang, and they attempt to escape. Spencer uses his strength to fight off the gang members, knocking them down one after another, with no one able to challenge him. But suddenly, Russell appears in front of them, holding a gun, and demands that they return the sacred gem to him. At that moment, a mysterious figure intervenes to save them, throwing a smoke bomb to distract the gang, and then instructing them to run after him. They quickly follow him as he leads them through secret tunnels that he knows well, bringing them to an exit that leads them into the jungle. There, he reveals his identity and tells them his name is Alex. He then invites them to his cabin and offers them drinks. They notice that Alex's cabin is filled with candles. When they ask him why, he explains that his weakness is mosquitoes, so he uses the candles to keep them away. Alex tells them that he feels like he's been inside the game for months and only has one life left, which has made him realize that he can't make it through the game alone and needs help. At that point, everyone understands that Alex is the missing piece they were searching for to complete their team, so they can continue the journey together. Alex then tells them that the next stage of the game will take place in the cabin. The transportation in the game is centered around the cabin, a place where the heroes need to sneak in to acquire a means of transportation that will take them to the tiger statue. The problem is that two guards are standing in front of the cabin, requiring them to distract them somehow. At that moment, everyone's gaze shifts to Martha, the only girl in the group. Bethany decides to help her by giving her advice and lessons in the art of seduction, as Martha has no experience in this area. Martha listens attentively, trying to apply what she has learned. Before carrying out the plan, Alex talks to the group, and they discover that he is from 1996, which astonishes them. They ask him what year he believes he is living in, and he answers 1996. At that moment, they realize that he is the child who disappeared 20 years ago, and that his house is the one that became known as the creepy house. When they tell him the truth, Alex is shocked and unable to comprehend it, but Spencer reassures him, promising that they will take him back to the real world. Martha begins to carry out her task of distracting the guards, but her attempt at seduction is disastrous, though it serves its intended purpose. The rest of the team manages to sneak into the cabin from behind the guards, where they choose a helicopter as their means of transportation. Outside the cabin, Martha confronts the guards and defeats them using her deadly dance skill. Meanwhile, Alex boards the helicopter and pilots it to escape the area, while Russell's gang starts firing missiles at them. One of the missiles hits the helicopter's rotor, causing them to lose control, and the helicopter drops to a low level, crashing into a trench due to the malfunction. To get the helicopter back to normal, someone must climb up and repair the rotor manually. Unfortunately, a herd of rhinoceroses appears, chasing them and making the situation even more dangerous. Spencer decides to take the risk. He exits the helicopter, extends his hand, and attempts to fix the malfunction. He successfully manages to do so, and the helicopter rises again. However, during this moment, the sacred gem falls out of the bag, and the group must return to the trench to find it, only to discover that it's surrounded by the herd. At that point, Spencer looks at the tattoo on his arm and notices that Fred only has 2 lines left. He comes up with a bold idea. He throws Fred out of the helicopter to attract the herd toward him and away from the gem. The plan works as the herd chases after Fred, allowing Spencer to recover the gem and return to the helicopter. However, Fred is trampled by the herd and loses one of his lives, falling from the sky once more. Spencer catches him back inside the helicopter before he falls again. Afterward, Fred is furious because Spencer sacrificed him and threw him to the herd. But he is surprised by everyone's laughter around him. At that moment, a mosquito bites Alex, putting him in grave danger since it's his last life. The final line on his tattoo disappears. Bethany quickly performs CPR on him, saving him from death. The surprise comes when Bethany notices that one of the lines has disappeared from her tattoo, appearing instead on Alex's arm, meaning that she sacrificed one of her lives to save him. Alex feels grateful to her and hugs her in appreciation for her sacrifice. Later, everyone rests in the jungle, but Alex remains worried, beginning to think about his parents and what may have happened to them during the 20 years he spent in the game. Bethany tries to comfort him, and during their conversation, she realizes that she has started caring for someone else. This is completely different from her previous personality, as she used to be selfish and only care about herself. As for Spencer and Martha, a private conversation takes place between them, during which Spencer, taking advantage of his newfound courage, admits that he has liked her for a long time. Martha responds with the same surprise, as she has felt the same way, making both of them happy. After that, they continue their journey and see the tiger statue from a distance. When Spencer raises the sacred gem, a path lit by torches appears before them, but they feel uneasy, fearing it might be a trap. Spencer decides to be brave and climbs the trees, but he falls, and a tiger pounces on him, causing him to lose one of his lives. He returns from the sky with only one life left. Meanwhile, Russell's gang appears on their motorcycles, heading toward them, and they decide to scatter, with each of them carrying out a part of the plan. Martha confronts Russell's gang using her combat skills, while Fred distracts the tiger, giving Spencer the chance to reach the statue. However, things get more complicated when one of the gang members ties Martha with a rope and drags her with his motorcycle. At the right moment, Spencer intervenes, strikes the man hard, frees Martha, then takes the motorcycle and drives it swiftly toward the statue. At the same time, an elephant blocks Fred's path, but he manages to control it with his knowledge of animals. When Spencer reaches the tiger statue, he finds Russell waiting for him, holding Bethany hostage and aiming a gun at her, threatening to kill her unless the sacred gem is returned. At that moment, Fred appears riding the elephant, holding the gem, but the tigers attack him, causing the gem to fall elsewhere. The friends manage to free Bethany, and Martha heads toward the gem, using her jumping skills. However, she finds herself surrounded by snakes. Despite poison being her weakness, she gathers her courage and moves through the snakes until she reaches the gem. At that moment, Russell appears behind her, threatening to kill her if she doesn't hand over the gem. However, she makes a bold decision, allowing the snakes to bite her deliberately, as she still has 2 lives left, which gives her the chance to return. Meanwhile, Spencer has begun climbing the tiger statue on the motorcycle. When Martha returns from the sky, Spencer extends his hand at the crucial moment, and she grabs it, handing him the gem. Quickly, he manages to place it back into the tiger statue, breaking the curse on the world of Jumanji. Everyone is overwhelmed with joy as they successfully complete their mission, and the game guide appears, congratulating them on their great achievement. He then tells them that he can now return them to their real world. He extends his hand, and one by one, they grab it, leaving the game and returning to their bodies. They are filled with immense joy at being back in reality. But soon they wonder about Alex, as he wasn't with them when they left. They head to his old house, the haunted house, but are shocked to find that it has completely changed and become a beautiful home, just like the others. At that moment, they realize that the game sent Alex back to his original time, 20 years ago, where he was able to live a happy life and start a family. When Alex sees them, he recognizes them and thanks them gratefully for saving his life and returning him to his world after he had lost hope while trapped inside the game. The next day, the friends return to their school, now closer to each other. Each of them has gained a stronger character after their experience in the world of Jumanji, and they decide together to destroy the game console so no one else falls victim to it. And thus, the first part of the movie ends. The second part begins with Spencer, who feels lonely and upset, lacking the courage to communicate with Martha, even though he loves her and wishes to be close to her. However, he remains convinced that his personality is unattractive and unworthy of her. When he returns home, he finds his grandfather, Eddie, who refuses to accept his aging and is determined to do many things, not giving in to the reality of old age. At the same time, Fridge, Bethany, and Martha try to contact Spencer, but he doesn't answer their calls due to his lack of self-confidence. He always sees himself as someone who is not brave or attractive, unlike the character Smolder, whom he portrayed in the world of Jumanji. For this reason, that night he decides to go down to his basement, where it becomes clear that he has reassembled the game console after they destroyed it and managed to fix it. Without hesitation, he enters the game world again, hoping to regain the strong and brave Smolder persona. The next day, Martha meets Bethany at a restaurant, and they talk about Spencer, discovering that he no longer responds to either of them and has completely isolated himself, appearing depressed. They try calling him again, but he doesn't answer. Meanwhile, an elderly man named Milo visits Grandpa Eddie, revealing that he had been his friend for 15 years. However, Grandpa Eddie can't stand him and refuses to speak to him. As Milo sold the restaurant they had built together when they were partners, Grandpa Eddie asks him why he is visiting after all these years, but Milo ignores the question and begins reminiscing about their past together. As they talk, the doorbell rings. Grandpa Eddie opens the door to find Spencer's friends, who have come to check on him after losing contact. They head upstairs to his room to look for him, but find no one there. Then they hear a strange noise coming from the basement. The three friends go down to the basement, where they find the game console running. They immediately realize that Spencer fixed it and entered the game world alone. Martha insists that they must enter the game again to help him get out. She argues that he won't succeed in the game by himself, and she manages to convince the others to join her. They use the console and are transported back into the world of Jumanji, but Bethany finds herself left outside, not understanding why she didn't join them. Meanwhile, Martha and Fridge arrive in the game world, where Martha returns to her previous Ruby character. She is surprised when she sees the strong and brave Smolder character, thinking it is Spencer. However, the biggest surprise is that it's Grandpa Eddie, who accidentally entered the game with them, as he was in the house when the console was activated. Not only that, but his friend Milo also entered with them, only to find himself in the short and weak Mouse character. Fridge falls from the sky onto Milo and discovers that he is now in the Professor Sheldon character, which annoys him greatly. At that moment, a hippopotamus appears behind Milo, and Martha rushes to save him, while Fridge tries to convince Grandpa Eddie and Milo that this world is full of dangers. Suddenly, a snake appears behind him unnoticed, attacking him and causing him to lose one of his 3 lives in the game. Fridge returns to the game, finding himself on an airplane. The others join him, and he informs them that Jumanji is facing a new danger. Hughes, the barbarian, has returned with his gang and seized the Falcon Jewel from the tribe that guarded it, hiding it inside a box to block the sunlight. As a result, a drought has spread across the world, causing crops and plants to wither. Recovering the jewel and returning it to the sunlight becomes an urgent task before it is too late. He hands them the map and tells them they must follow the blazing flame that will lead them to the fruit. Then he drops them off in the desert, where they find parked cars. But before they can process the situation, an ostrich appears. Grandpa Eddie tries to fend it off with his hand, but it attacks and kills him, causing him to return to the game after losing another life. Later, they notice a herd of ostriches charging toward them, so they get into 2 of the parked cars and speed off while the ostriches chase them fiercely. Grandpa Eddie manages to fend off one ostrich, but finds himself facing a dangerous cliff. He executes a daring jump with the car to the other side, narrowly escaping danger. Meanwhile, Bethany is still outside the game, unable to enter. She decides to go to Alex for help. Alex expresses his concern about the danger, but Bethany insists that the team cannot be complete without him, and they must enter the game to save their friends. Back in the Jumanji world, the friends reach an oasis and enter an inn. There, a woman in a red dress approaches Grandpa Eddie, and he thinks she is flirting with him. However, she surprises him with a strong slap across the face and then pretends not to know him when she notices Hugh's men in the place, fearing she might attract attention. They later realize that the woman is the former lover of Grandpa Eddie's character in the game, the very blazing flame that Nigel had told them to follow to reach the fruit. Suddenly, Hughes appears, surrounded by his men and hyenas. In an instant, the candlelight goes out and darkness falls over the place. One of Hughes' men yells that the key to the box containing the jewel has been stolen, and they spot someone running away from the scene. Grandpa Eddie manages to catch the thief, and everyone is shocked when they discover that it is Spencer who has found himself in this character. But he is quickly captured by Hughes's men, and the key is taken back. At that moment, Spencer feels tense and asks for his cloning device. However, Martha realizes that Spencer is not in the Smolder character, but in the character of the thief. Hughes eliminates Spencer, causing him to lose one of his 3 lives and fall again from the sky, outside the location. When he returns to them, they express their anger and ask why he took such a step. He replies that he thought re-entering the game would give him the Smolder character, the strong and brave one, and that he missed that feeling. At that moment, the ex-girlfriend of Grandpa Eddie's character approaches and tells them they must head to the castle to prevent Hughes from handing the jewel over to Kabuki, who seeks to form an alliance with him. She bids Grandpa Eddie farewell, visibly affected by their parting, and then continues on her way. An idea strikes Spencer. They should steal the camels from the stable and take them to Hughes's castle. Meanwhile, Martha and Fridge follow Grandpa Eddie's ex-girlfriend, who represents the blazing flame, the guide that will lead them to the fruit. They watch as she enters a location, and they follow her, only to find a glowing lake in the center. The tree bearing the mulberry fruit they are searching for is there. Martha uses her skills to reach it and pick the fruit, but she falls into the glowing lake due to the weight of the fruit. When she emerges from the lake, she grabs Fridge's hand, and they switch characters because the glowing lake allows them to exchange their identities. At that moment, Fridge is delighted with the Ruby character he has become, while Martha is upset because she has turned into the Professor Sheldon character. Fridge continues to experiment with Ruby's skills until he falls into the glowing lake. Martha extends her hand to him, and when he grabs it, they switch characters back and return to their original forms. Meanwhile, Spencer, Grandpa Eddie, and Milo had successfully stolen the camels from the stable and fled from the oasis. They met Martha and Fridge, who were waiting for them, but the oasis guards had come out to pursue them. Grandpa Eddie planned to confront them and use his strength to overcome them. But suddenly, a projectile was fired at them by the oasis guards, exploding upon impact, which resulted in their deaths and their return to the sky after losing a life. Afterward, they rode the camels and resumed their journey. Grandpa Eddie was still angry with his friend Milo for selling their restaurant and deciding to retire. They dismounted from the camels, and a quarrel broke out between them. Grandpa Eddie struck Milo, sending him flying, which caused Milo to lose one of his remaining lives, leaving him with just one chance left. At that moment, Milo realized the situation and decided to back down from the argument, saying that kindness was better because if they continued this way, they would all lose their lives. They continued their journey until they reached the moving bridges that they needed to cross to reach Hughes's castle on the other side. But the bridges were scattered, and they had to move from one to another. During this time, they were attacked by a herd of wild monkeys, so they ran quickly across the bridges. After a fierce battle with the monkeys on the moving bridges, they managed to reach the other side. However, they found themselves surrounded by monkeys. At that moment, Alex appeared on a black horse and saved them, as the monkeys were afraid of horses and fled. They learned from Alex that Bethany was in the character of the black horse and was able to communicate with them through Milo, who could understand animal language due to his new character. They sat down to rest before continuing their journey. Grandpa Eddie talked to Milo and asked him what he had been thinking about after all these years. It seemed that Milo was hiding something, and Grandpa Eddie realized that Milo was sick and hadn't achieved much in his life. He decided to visit his old friend before he passed away. They continued their journey until they reached a glowing lake similar to the one that contained the tree. They deduced that if they dived into it, they would switch characters as they wished. Furthermore, they indeed went into the lake, where each of them regained their original character. Fridge returned to the mouse character. Spencer returned to the smolder character, strong and brave. Bethany returned to the Professor Sheldon character, the map reader. Grandpa Eddie became the thief character. Milo became the black horse character. Spencer was happy to regain his strong and brave character. Grandpa Eddie then went to look for his friend Milo, but he discovered that Hughes's men had captured him. At the same moment, they also captured Grandpa Eddie. Alex saw them and informed the group. They then made a plan to split into two teams. The first would sneak into the castle to rescue them, and the second would sneak in to steal the Falcon Jewel. Alex, Fridge, and Bethany headed toward the castle gate in an attempt to slip through, just as Hughes's men had done. Hoping not to be noticed, Alex managed to cross the gate. However, the guards stopped them and asked if they were the Kabuki brothers they had been waiting for. They had to pretend to be the Kabuki brothers, and at that moment, the guards welcomed them and let them meet with Hughes. Meanwhile, Spencer and Martha were climbing the ice mountain to reach the castle from the back. Martha asked Spencer why he had been avoiding her and not responding to her calls. Spencer admitted that he had been feeling insecure and thought that Martha liked the strong and brave Smolder character, so he decided to return to the game to feel that again. Martha told him that she loved him as he was in his true self, and that sometimes a person needs someone by their side they can rely on and show their weaknesses to. That is love. Spencer felt happy to hear these words. They continued climbing the mountain until they reached the dungeon where Grandpa Eddie was imprisoned, and Spencer used his strength to lift the dungeon door and release him. At the same time, Alex managed to reach Milo's cell and freed him. Meanwhile, the guards took Fridge and Bethany to meet Hughes. When Hughes saw them, he was wearing the Falcon Jewel around his neck and asked about the whereabouts of their sister, whom he was going to marry in exchange for giving them the jewel. Fridge and Bethany couldn't answer his question, so he became angry and repeated the question several times. Before he could harm them, Martha appeared and pretended to be the sister who had come to marry him. At that moment, he received a message that the Kabuki brothers would be delayed, and Hughes realized they were imposters, ordering his men to capture them. At that moment, Spencer used his strength and attacked Hughes's men. When he reached Hughes and tried to strike him, he discovered that Hughes was stronger than him, and his blows had no effect. Hughes struck him with a powerful blow, knocking him to the ground. Spencer then took the berry from his pocket, and Hughes noticed that he was afraid of it because it was his weakness. Hughes decided to escape using the hot air balloon, so Spencer ran after him and managed to grab the balloon's rope at the last moment and climb aboard. His friends saw him enter the balloon and understood that he was following Hughes to retrieve the jewel. At that moment, Hughes attacked Spencer from behind, raising his weapon to kill him, but the balloon collided with a tower in the castle, causing part of it to crash. Spencer took the opportunity to attack Hughes, hitting him with the berry in the chest, weakening him. Spencer continued to strike until both he and Hughes fell from the balloon. However, Hughes managed to grab the jewel. At the last moment, Grandpa Eddie rode on Milo's horse and jumped off to make its wings fly. Here, they discovered that the black horse character had wings and could fly. They reached Spencer before the balloon crashed, and they dropped the jewel to him, allowing him to fly it into the sunlight. When they exposed the jewel to the sun's rays, the curse in the world of Jumanji was broken, and the world returned to normal. They were all overjoyed to have succeeded in the game for the second time, hugging each other and celebrating. At that moment, a figure appeared and praised their success in saving the world of Jumanji. He then took the jewel from them to return it to the tribe that protected it. He extended his hand to return them to their real world. But at that moment, Milo communicated with them through Martha, as he understood animal language. Furthermore, he told them that he had decided to stay in the world of Jumanji in the Black Horse character, because if he returned to the real world, he would die due to his illness. Grandpa Eddie said goodbye and told him that he would remain his friend for life. Then he hugged him sadly. Milo's wings flew in the sky, and he was happy because he felt like he would live for a long time. They then held hands and left the game world, filled with happiness and joy. Martha hugged Spencer, and then they went to the restaurant to spend time together, promising each other that they would always be a team and nothing would ever tear them apart. And so, the second part of the movie ended.